Welcome back to another Interview Wednesday here on Turnbuckle Trash Talk. I am the officiant Kent, and I'm actually joined with a very special guest this week in kind of a crossover episode.
Again, we like to do these.
We do. Representing the IndyKast, this is Chad Allen. Chad, first off, thank you so much for joining me.
Definitely. Greetings, everybody out there in the what do you call your fans anyway? No, mine are the dozens and dozens.
Well, there's like the Turnbuckle Trash Talkers.
The Trash Talkers?
Kind of
okay,
one.
I like it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm still working on that whole fan name. But I wanted to talk about you. We're actually here at WWN and ACW present Southern Stampede, but we're not going to talk about that at all.
No,
that's not what this episode's for.
Go find my show. We'll probably talk about that next
Yeah,
week.
that's
Don't
right.
worry.
We'll let the IndyKast cover that. We're here to talk about you, actually, and the IndyKast as a whole. So I want to take it back to the very, very beginning.
Sure.
When were you first exposed to wrestling? What's your first wrestling memory?
Age 6. I was flipping through TV channels I lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the time. My dad was military. We were stationed at the Navy base in Philly. And I was flipping through channels, and I still remember it. I can't find video footage of it to this day, but Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant getting beaten up by superstar Billy Graham. And Billy Graham was being, I think, managed by #1 Paul Jones at the time. And for some reason, I'm like, what the heck is this? And it's just been one of those things that
it's just like lost in the annals of history.
I gotta watch the rest of this now.
Yeah.
And I watched it, and I remember seeing Dusty. And so interestingly enough, my first real kick into it was the old NWA, but then being in Philly was a very big WWF spot.
Absolutely.
So the Spectrum and the like, I ended up getting into, obviously Hogan, and my first real big wrestling fandom was Roddy Piper. So that's like when I got into that.
So would you say Roddy was what really hooked you into wrestling and
definitely.
really made you a fan?
Yeah, Roddy is my hero.
Was there a particular moment that caught you, or was it just like an overall presence and overall?
For Roddy, it's just an overall presence. I mean, I'm sure we could sit for days and pick out, the Woman Maker promo, the smashing the flower shop, the beating, Jimmy Snuka over the head with a coconut type stuff. Sure, we can pick those little things out, but just Roddy as a whole and the I don't give a bleep attitude. I don't know if we can curse here.
Yes,
we
can
curse on my show. I don't give a fuck attitude. That caught me immediately. Even at like 6, 7, when a lot of my other friends were like, Hulk Hogan, he's like the big good guy, I was cheering for Roddy.
The bad guys, I always feel like, there's that clean baby face that everybody kind of is like, I get it, like Mr. USA or Mr. whatever, like that's that. But I always feel like the bad guys are what make fans.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, people can appreciate the good guys, but the bad guys absolutely are what will make you a fan or break you as a fan.
I remember a great story about Roddy once where I guess a little kid had come up to him somewhere and tried to get an autograph from him. This is when he was a bad guy. And he, I guess, flipped out and like, what are you doing bother me? You leave me alone, and chased this poor kid off. And I remember that apparently the guy that was Roddy said, you could have just taken a second and signed his autograph. Why did you do that? And he goes, sure, I could have signed his autograph. He might have remembered that for a couple minutes. He'll remember Roddy Piper scared him away for the rest of his life. And that's absolutely 100%
It's so funny because I went to a restaurant as a kid, and this memory is still clear as day. I must have been like 6 years old. It was a place called Ed DeBevick's around Chicago. And what it was known for was the waitresses being total dicks and the waiters being dicks.
That's kind of
like that was the gimmick of the restaurant.
Last resort type
right.
There, yep.
But I was like 7 years old.
Right.
And I distinctly remember like bumping into a waitress or something going to the bathroom and her just turning around and screaming at me. And that still sticks out in my head more than the food, more than the look of the restaurant. Like, I can remember that moment distinctly.
That could have been the worst meal you've ever had, but you remembered.
But I remember that. And I have taken people to that place since then, being like, man, I just don't know why I have to come back to this place. I have to introduce people to this.
Of course.
So, what made you decide I want to get more into wrestling, more involved beyond just fan level?
So I got a little bit more involved, still kind of in the fan level, I think, when I became an admin for a group on Facebook called the Cult of Kayfabe.
Okay.
So that's where I started to kind of really get into that side of it. Cult of Kayfabe started up doing a podcast that they ended up calling the Cockcast, K-O-K, Cockcast, where it was talking about WWE and sometimes TNA, because at the time that was... That
was actually a thing worth talking about.
No, see, you know what?
Now it is. Now it is. I agree.
Greatly.
But there was a great long period where it was not worth even mentioning.
So they had the Cockcast for a while, and I remember at one point, because I'm such a big independent wrestling fan, I said, we need that independent kind of notice on here that the indies need to be noticed and covered. So let's do another podcast on the network, as it were, and let's call it the IndyKast. And that's kind of why we have the K in our name, because it was based off of
that's very interesting.
That's why
actually.
IndyKast, INDYKAST. So that's where it kind of started from there. And I was actually going to host it with another friend of mine who we just couldn't get schedules to work. And I had actually, interestingly enough, met Zach Romero and his girlfriend at the time.
Now wife.
Luna, now wife, at a Shine show. And we became friends and talked to him. And I said, hey, you know what? I've got this opportunity to do this podcast. You're already doing like these online reviews and stuff. Do you want to do the podcast with me? And that's kind of where it started from there. After a couple of years on with Cult of Kayfabe, they decided they didn't want to do podcasts anymore. We decided we weren't done by any stretch of the imagination. So that's when we took over, and then the Wrestling Nerds Radio Network became a thing.
It's true, and
we
you guys
went
have
from
expanded more and more. You've got Zach Cooper's show, you've got Hammerfist,
Yep.
and it just seems like there's always ideas for more content, content is king. So
Team Hammerfist, we had met those guys online, and it was definitely a conversation about, they had the show that was kind of on their own. It's like, hey, we'd be better together. That's really what formed it. And then, we got talking to Zachary Cooper, actually, after we'd interviewed him about podcasting, because he said, I have my own podcast studio. And we're like, why do you have your own podcast studio? He's like, I used to do one at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm thinking about bringing it back. And we're like, well, we've got a spot. You can bring it back on right here. And then that's where that show came up. And there has been talks with one other worker about possibly bringing another show on. And I know we were talking briefly, and people saw it online, probably on our Twitter. We were talking with Pollyanna, who does pins and the like. It's a merch company. They were talking about bringing their podcast back, so they might be joining us as well, but that's still up in the air. But content is king. We're always trying to find cool new stuff.
Well, one of the great things about the IndyKast is it feels like a family affair. Because it's often you and Shelly, or Zach and Luna, or the four of you, and you guys bring this unique energy to podcasting, and the fact that I wouldn't say you don't give a fuck, but I would say that you guys are so just open. Like, you're not afraid to express yourselves. It's not characters. It's not like an unknown side of you. It's this is us. Like, we're just having a conversation and decided to record it.
I've definitely said a few things on there that are definitely probably I wouldn't have said in a normal conversation.
Right.
But because the mics are on, it's always like what Triple H even talked about. The best characters are just you turned up to 11.
Right.
Sometimes do we get to that? Yeah, but most of it's just us, exactly. And Zach and Luna have gone from being friends of ours to people that both my two girls legitimately call Uncle Zach and Aunt Luna. They're family to us now. So that's why when the four of us, or the three of us, or the two of us, or how many of us are in the room or getting together and doing these episodes, that's why they flow the way they do. Because we're just, and there's a lot of times where we've legitimately talked for an hour before the show, recorded an hour-long episode, and then are still there an hour later talking after that even. So we get all of that out of our system then.
One of the great things about the IndyKast, too, that I'm a huge fan of and has made me an avid listener now, is that you never know what you're going to get.
True.
You never go into an episode thinking, it's the standard format.
Right.
Like, for example, I do an interview show effectively every Wednesday. You can expect an interview.
Right.
With you guys, you have no idea. Like, it could be a conversation about Disney. It could be a conversation about wrestling.
Yep.
I know you guys just posted an episode that I'm actually trying to catch up to listen to about the bad reputation of Florida wrestling.
Actually, we'd like to thank you. You're part of the reason that conversation actually got started.
Well, awesome.
You put that up on. You put up a conversation about that on Facebook, as did actually Zach Cooper did as well. So, and then obviously all the crap with Jason Ranch Dressing. No, I won't refer to him by his real name. Fuck that guy. Fuck him hard. But anyway.
Don't. That's the whole point. Is you should not.
Or if you're going to, be over 15.
There you go. So
anyway. We're going to have fun with this episode. But no, it's legitimately, we make a big deal about, for the longest time, and especially for us, there's a point where I feel like you can only talk about wrestling so much. Yes, there's a lot of it going on. There's a lot of great things, but there's a point where it's like, we don't have a good topic this week. We're bored with it this week. And then it started up, I think, once we we did the Disney cast where we did the whole Disney
Yep.
episode.
Yep. There's been
we've
porn
done-
episodes.
We do this for the anniversarios. Yep, every year we try to do an episode where we review a wrestling-related pornography, and you get to hear all the noises of it in the background because we're playing it straight up.
True.
So, also, our tournament episodes. We love doing our tournament episodes where we what's the best cookie, what's the best breakfast cereal.
Yep.
We just did one thanks to some of our listeners who sent in a 80s horror movie, which we did for Halloween time. I think we're talking about doing a Thanksgiving side dish one for Thanksgiving.
I was about to suggest it. It's perfect.
I'll have to work on that one. We were starting to discuss that one, and I haven't drawn the tournament up yet. But yeah, we listen. And no matter how much of a wrestling fan you are, or how much of a fan you are of anything, you live days where you're like, I need a break. So we're here to be that break from time to time.
Well, and that's true more than ever now. I mean,
God,
you
yeah.
could watch wrestling 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
God, yeah.
and not get through all of it.
I legitimately just yesterday went into my DVR. I had 4 episodes of AEW, 3 episodes of NXT, 2 episodes of WOW, the Women of Wrestling.
Women of Wrestling. Yep.
2 episodes of New Japan. Episodes of fucking Lucha Underground that I just forgot to cancel because they're not doing them anymore. I just forgot to take it off my DVR.
The greatest show that never was.
Right, but there's a point where it's that's 8 hours, 9 hours worth of wrestling that I got to try to catch up on. I watched the most recent episodes of a few of them and deleted them.
Yeah, exactly. How can you possibly? And that's, I think, the benefit of podcasting is you can really get all of that condensed. I mean, Solid Monster Sounds Off is one of my favorite podcasts, and he condenses the whole week of news, wrestling shows, everything into 3 hours.
Right.
But like you were saying, there's only so many conversations you can have.
3 hours.
Yeah.
It's a 3-hour
3-hour
podcast.
podcast,
So now you have to, even if you're coming to that, you have to sit down for 3 hours and listen
Right.
to the podcast.
And
God bless him, but
we're just going to have the same conversations.
Right.
We're going to have the same news reports. So
Right.
I like that you guys do something different.
Right.
And highlight different topics, so you're not just spouting off about the same stuff that everybody else has talked about.
Right.
Because by the time, I know this as a content creator, by the time you've gotten it up, most of the people have already moved on to something else anyway. So it's old news.
We've definitely made jokes before about, hey, we know we're the last people to talk about this, but we feel like
We're still gonna.
We feel like we have to. I know, I think next week I wanted to cover. Because I know we were very interested in getting Shelley's take on it, on the Jordan Miles /
Yes,
HGH stuff.
yes.
Well, my wife is African American. My wife is black. So her version of it, we have a host that's a black female, which is not a normal
That's
occurrence
not
in
common in
podcasting.
wrestling podcasting,
Podcasters
especially.
look like me. They're fat white guys with big beards, usually. Like most of the rest of our podcasts. You can grow it out. Go for it. So, but yeah, that's we want to take that take when we can do something different, or
And
when
even
the ladies can cover something that Shelley and Luna can cover something that.
I feel like that's even extra special because even if it is after the fact, it's got such a unique perspective coming to the table that I feel like it will still be relevant.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
It won't be the old white man's take.
Right.
And in that case, I think that's definitely worth reporting, even if it is a couple weeks after the fact. So I want to ask you now, what is the vision?
Hi, Aspen.
What's the long-term goal for the IndyKast? Where do you see it going? Is it kind of like a pet project that it's just a great way to get together with friends, or are you like, well, we would love to see this go to
I will quote. I was actually on the way up here. The Team Hammerfist had just done an episode this morning. By the way, Facebook.com/THFist. Go look at because they video record it first.
Yes.
And then it goes up on the
very similar to
Wrestling
this,
Network later. But he said, Rick the Sussman actually said today that every person, if given the opportunity, would sell out in a second.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with selling out.
There
because
isn't.
You should get paid for exactly what you love to do.
Yeah.
If there's somebody out there that wants to pay us to move the Wrestling Nerds Radio Network and make it a full-time job, that's awesome.
That would be fantastic.
I'm not holding my breath on that happening. I have a 9-to-5 shoot job that I go to every week, and do I love it? Does anybody really love their actual shoot job? No, probably not. But where do I legitimately see it going? I mean, I just keep the hope to building listeners. I mean, our listenership, especially in the last year, has gone way up, and I love it. I love going on to the programs I have to even just see what our listeners look like on SoundCloud. We used to be that's the reason I call my fans the dozen to dozen.
Yeah.
because there were dozens and dozens of
I
people
understand
listening.
that very, very well.
But now we're starting to get into like, hundreds, 200s, 300s, 400s,
Even
500s,
better.
thousands. Like people that are going back and listening to these episodes, and it's not just in the U.S., it's all across the world. Heck yeah, if you want to, for those of you in Chile, I don't know why we're so big in Chile, thank you.
Yeah.
For those of you in Bulgaria came
Bulgaria?
up recently. Thank you for our Bulgarian listener, Rusev Machka. But yeah, no, it's like, let's just keep building it up and having fun with it. It's fun.
Well, and the great thing about wrestling podcasting is it can lead to so many new opportunities.
Oh, God,
you've been
yeah.
able to attend shows, you've been able to meet people, and it even segued into you being able to manage a wrestling match, which I know.
I did not. It was somebody who looked very much like me, though.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, that guy Jacob Pillar, very good manager.
Of Pillar and Post, attorneys at law.
Definitely very handsome gentleman. No, anyway, I won't kayfabe that too much. No, yeah, I got an opportunity, and actually, that was one of those things where Mr. Pig is a legit friend of mine outside of here, somebody that I did meet because of this. Actually, a brief funny story, I was a facilitator at my shoot job, and what I had mentioned that I'm a wrestling fan. And I had one of my students come up to me afterwards and go, "Hey, Chad, so you're a wrestling fan. What shows do you watch?" And I went, "Well, WWE and TNA and blah, blah, blah." She goes, "What about, like, smaller stuff?" I said, "Oh, God, yeah, I watch a lot of the, I try to keep up with Chikara when I can, and there's a bunch around here." And she goes, "Yeah, who around here?" So then I get narrowed down. She goes, "Well, do you know Piggy, original Piggy, OPP?" I went, "Yeah, he's a buddy of mine. Why?" She's like, "Yeah, it's my boyfriend." And then I got a message from
Small world.
From Piggy later. It's like, why you teaching my old lady, yo? And I'm like, I didn't know. It was like, yeah. So small world type of situation. But no, I've known BJ. Sorry to shoot name you BJ, but I've known BJ for a while, and he was shooting ideas off of me about a lawyer, and I was just throwing ideas back to him. And he goes, "Hey, great. What are you doing on Wednesday?" And it was like, "Well, what are you talking about?" It's like, "Well, get your suit together. Let's do it."
And what was that experience like for you? I mean, like you said, it was kind of a bucket list, like dream thing, and then it became a reality in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
To the point that not only did you get to come to ringside, you got to do a promo.
I did.
You got to be involved in the match.
I did.
You got the full manager experience on your first time out.
And
what was that like?
First off, I definitely also want to thank Bud Heavy, who was a blast, because BJ was definitely like, he is like greener than grass, has no idea what he's doing new. So and BJ and Bud Heavy were excellent to help me through it and to work with me on every step of it to make sure I was in the right spots. No, it was a blast. Like, even just like, it's a dumb thing, like getting to walk behind the curtains of the locker room area was like this weird moment. It's like, I shouldn't be back here. And even today, like looking for Zach or looking for you, I had to make sure I got somebody to tell me, "Oh no, they're in the back. Go on in there."
Yeah, it's okay. You can go find them.
But I'm one of those people that's like, that's not for me, and that's like, no, this time it is for you. Go back.
Well, and I think wrestling fans take for granted how important that barrier is, especially on the indie scene. Like, I notice it a lot around here, is that these fans don't want that illusion, don't want, like, they're willing to just blast through that suspension of disbelief. And I'm like, doesn't that ruin it for you? Like, for me, it would.
It does.
Like, I don't want to see how Disneyland is Disneyland or Disney World works. Like, I want that magic to stay magic, because the minute you step backstage, it stops being magic. It really does.
Oh no, and I'm like, don't get me wrong, I'm 43. I've been watching wrestling since I was 6.
Right.
I've seen just about everything. I'm not dumb. I'm a smart.
You can put it together pretty easily.
I'm a smart fan, which I hate that word, by the way. But it fits in this one. I'm one of the smart fans. I get what's going on, thanks to the people I know and the things that I've done. I know a lot of the backstage stuff of it. But when I'm out in that audience, I'm going to cheer, I'm going to yell, I'm a fan. That those people absolutely hate each other. Now, whether they're going to I'm going to watch them buddy up after the show's done, that doesn't ruin
You're able to separate.
So being able to be on that side of it was kind of cool. And actually, I did get to see some fans who do know me from this, then make sure, though, when I was out there in the suit, in the vest, out there yelling, that I was Jacob Pillar, that I was somebody different, and they referred to me differently, but then talked to me about the IndyKast when I came out. And I love that they were able to separate that and keep that.
That's a rare quality that I wish we could see expand more, but I think it only takes time and experience and education. I mean, like you said, you've been a wrestling fan your entire life. you've got some time there under your belt that you
Yeah.
can say, like, I can figure that out. Whereas some of
Right.
these people, it's their first show, second show, 10th
Right.
show, and they still, they're still learning.
Right.
So I want you to kind of talk about the IndyKast and promote it now. I want
Okay.
this to be your get your shit
Get
in,
my shit
as
in,
you
there we
will,
go.
to steal from you guys, but also
But Mr.
the
Brian
take
Cage, officially
it
gives
home
permission.
segment.
Sure.
Go ahead and promote anything you
So,
want to promote.
IndyKast, INDYKAST on all your social media. So find us on Facebook. We have a YouTube page that we need to update more often. Twitter, Instagram. You can probably even find us on stuff like Tinder. I don't know. Just look for us on there. Wrestling Nerds Radio Network, though, SoundCloud.com/WNRN, Wrestling Nerds Radio Network, or search Wrestling Nerds Radio Network on any of your podcast catchers, iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're on all of them. So just look for us on there. And you found it if you found the Nerdador, not in the rainbow color. It'd be green and yellow. But here's the Pride shirt, which you can buy on fullygimmick.com. And then follow all of our other shows on there. Team Hammerfist. Follow Zachary Cooper if you're not following for the podcast.
This makes no sense.
Amazing wrestling. But This Makes No Sense is a blast too. And another guy that is a wrestler who sometimes talks about wrestling. But
Very rarely. Surprisingly rarely.
But went on a whole show about Batman's nipples once. So there you go.
Yeah.
But
There's something for everyone on the Wrestling Nerds Radio
Definitely,
Network.
definitely.
It's true.
It doesn't matter if because we make a big deal that we're, pop culture, we're wrestling, we're, that little splash of crass used to be part of our old intro, or I think the new intro now is, wrestling news, interviews, pop culture, and PP humor.
And nonsense and more nonsense.
Nonsense and more nonsense. That's us. That's us to a T. So you should listen if you're not already.
So I'm going to ask you briefly, out of order, the last 4 questions I ask in every interview, and
Sure.
I've kind of tailored them a little bit more to you specifically.
Okay.
Number 1 would
It's like
be...
our last 3 questions for us.
Right.
Our final 3.
Number 1 would be, I want to hear your take on the overall landscape of wrestling. And the reason I ask this is because a lot of people say, well, it's a boom, it's hotter than it's ever been,
Sure.
which I disagree. But other people can recognize there's something for everyone and find
Sure.
a positive take. And some people are like, it's too oversaturated. I really want to hear your take on the wrestling landscape.
I think it's in a great spot right now for everybody but the WWE. WWE has their problems right now that I think they internally need to deal with. The good thing about WWE is I will give them credit. They've been in situations like this before and fixed it before. So I don't see why they can't do it now.
There's potential.
But AEW is on fire. The indie scene is on fire. Those are the places that you need to be. So, those are the places you should be watching, you should be keeping track of. But I think wrestling is doing great. Is there too much of it? Sometimes. But I think if you can, there is that definitely something for everybody. So if you like, the kind of the old school WCW type thing, well, go watch AEW. That's been excellent. If you want the old NWA TV shows, go online and watch NWA Power. I love it. If you want that right in your face situation, come to an indie show like ACW. Come to an indie show like Punk Pro. Come to an indie show
lots
like
of options.
GCW. And that's just here in Florida. I've just listed 3 main ones in Florida.
I heard someone say there were 60 active promotions in Florida.
We actually, who figured that out was
Speedy.
Speedy.
Yep.
I figured that out there, and he's probably taking pictures for all 60 of them.
I hope so.
And he
Good
deserves
for
a lot
him,
more.
yeah.
But there's a lot of active companies around here, but
But
go
that
out-
means there's,
go out and
again,
see them,
something
though.
for everyone.
Right.
So what misconceptions or illusions did you have about wrestling, maybe growing up, that were shattered as you got closer to the business?
I think something, I guess the more I got into it, the more I started to become smart, how friendly they are to each other. It the first time it really kind of got shattered for me was when Iron Sheik and Hacksaw Jim Duggan got pulled over together. And I was like, well, why are they together?
Yeah, that there is an
Fighting each other?
actual
Right.
animosity,
And then
well, at
it's
least
like,
realistically.
And it's like a tear for a little bit of that one. So I think that's probably the biggest thing on that one is just getting used to what there's outside and inside. So.
What piece of advice would you give to someone who's becoming a wrestling fan or trying to get more involved in wrestling, starting a wrestling podcast or trying to volunteer backstage? What advice would you give them to help kind of set them on the right path?
As a fan, go have fun, cheer, yell, get into it. Don't worry so much about what's going on backstage or who cares. if you're at the show, be at the show, have fun for the show. Whatever happens before or after it is before and after it, and isn't our deal. If you want to be a podcaster, don't expect to make money off of it. Don't expect to, you're not going to make a career out of this. Those that do are lucky, and congratulations to them, and usually already have a big name attached to them. I know my show's never going to be Colt Cabana. I'm never going to be Jericho. Yep. I'm never going to, I guess Flair has one. Or
he did. It was, but it went down pretty quickly.
Arn Anderson has one now. Yep. Those are going to be the big name podcasts. Good for them. They have big names already, so of course they are. But if you have something that you want to say, don't be afraid to go out and say it, but don't expect to you're not going to become a millionaire. If it's not for fun, it's not worth it. And then becoming a wrestler or getting more involved in the wrestling scene, be open, be quiet, keep your eyes open and keep your eyes and ears open and your mouth closed. Help out with whatever you can. If you get an opportunity to do it, grab a hold of it and enjoy it. But again, don't expect to make a career out of it, because the number of people that can actually break through that ceiling and make a career out of it, even on the indie level, not all of us are going to be the big names in WWE. Not all of us are going to be Effie or David Starr or those guys that pay their bills with wrestling.
Yeah.
So
the final question, and this kind of stumps some of the wrestlers when I ask it, but I'm interested to hear your perspective. What's one thing you would change about the wrestling business?
If there was a better way to eliminate some of the absolute assholes that are out there, the cheapskates, the carnies, not Carrie Awful and those guys,
right.
Actual carny type wrestling promoters,
carny mindset. Yeah.
The more we could get rid of those people and get people in wrestling who are very much set to try to make the business better, I think the better wrestling could be. The problem is because the people like those carny mindset folks, or the people like Jason Ranch Dressing, who are out there and constantly give the sport a bad name, that's what people are going to see. That's the news people are going to remember. Not, hey, WrestleMania has sold out another 100,000 seats at a stadium. Which, by the way, I just got my tickets yesterday.
Wow.
So see you at WrestleMania, everybody. I haven't announced a damn thing, but I'll be there. And also come to, by the way, Run This Town for GCW.
Yes, I will be there.
You guys are going to be there.
Yep.
And I just got invited to be up.
It's going to be a long couple days.
I know, but we just got invited to be up on the balcony, so I'm all excited. So yay for that. But yeah, but the more of this, the carny mindset we could try to get the hell out of the sport, the better it'll be.
Yeah, and it's a business, but it's also a respect issue too. You got to respect the talent just as much as you respect, the promoters and the fans and everything like that. So I completely
I know
agree
a bunch
with
of great promoters that are out there that are doing some wonderful stuff, but boy, have I seen some shitbags in my time too. And I'm not even I'm a podcaster and a one-time worker. Maybe there might be a second time one day. Somebody might need a lawyer again, but other than that, but even that, I've seen some shit. So
anyway, Chad, thank you so much for joining me, and guys, thank you so much for watching another Interview Wednesday. Go check out the IndyKast. They have new episodes every week, and it is some of the best content you're going to hear on the Wrestling Nerds Radio Network. So check that out, and we will see you guys next week. Do you want to do your?